Welcome to the What Good Looks Like podcast, where we shine the spotlight on organizations and leaders who are truly living out what it means to champion the message and the work of purpose in the marketplace today. I'm your host, Davin Salvagno.
Look, never place your value as a person based on the achievement of goals. You try to achieve goals. You work hard, you do your best, but that's not who you are as a human. You need that higher connection to purpose that you talk about all the time. Why am I doing all this stuff for one? And two, you need to enjoy the process of life.
Welcome back to the What Good Looks Like podcast. We are super excited to kick off season 2 with our first guest, world-renowned author, thought leader, executive coach, one of my heroes, Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall, I am so honored, so grateful, so excited that you are joining us today for this discussion. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. Two of my good friends, Gary Ridge and Ken Blanchard, both said you were just a wonderful person and loved this podcast.
Oh, that's so wonderful that they are great friends of mine. They're really mentors of mine for many, many years. They've both been on, and anytime that I get a second to spend listening to them, I try to talk as little as possible in their presence and listen as much as possible because they are so wise and so insightful. And had it not been for them, we wouldn't have met. I mean, they insisted that we had a conversation together, and I always listen when they insist. So thank you for responding to the invitation to be here. I can't wait for us to dive into your story and your work. There's just so much that I know that is in your head and in your heart to share with those that'll be listening today.
Oh, thank you again for inviting me.
My pleasure. So for those of you who are listening, this is the What Good Looks Like podcast, where we shine the spotlight on different authors, thought leaders, and speakers who really champion the message of purpose and finding meaning and fulfillment in the work that they do and leading great organizations that champion that. And I will tell you, Marshall Goldsmith has been one of the greatest champions of that message of our time. And for those of you who don't know Marshall, I want to spend some time introducing you properly to our audience. So if you could share a little bit of your journey. Most people know you as, the person in the green polo shirt, khaki pants, and brown loafers, of which I know there are many in your closet, and very intentionally, and we'll get to that. But share a little bit about your journey, how you even got into this area of thought leadership and where your life has led you.
Well, I'll tell you my story of life. My name is Marshall, from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I went to undergrad school at a little engineering school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. Got an undergrad degree in mathematical economics, which has very little to do immediately with what I do today. Then I got an MBA at Indiana University and then a PhD in UCLA. After getting a PhD at UCLA, I was a college professor and dean, and then I met a very famous man named Dr. Paul Hersey, and of course, Ken Blanchard and Paul Hersey. We all worked together. And Ken and I had the same boss. Paul was both of our bosses. And so Ken and I used to work together back in many, many years ago. And Paul Hersey, and I followed him around to try to learn what he did. One day he got double booked. He said, "Can you do what I do?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "I'll pay $1,000 for a day." Since I was making $15,000 for a year, I said, "Sign me up, coach." That degree in mathematical economics kicked in there. I said, "Sign me up, $1,000 a day." So I did a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in New York. They were incredibly angry when I showed up because I wasn't him. But I got ranked first place of all the speakers in a 2-week program. It's like Paul called up and they said, "Look, we were angry, but this guy came in first place, send him again." Paul said, "Do you want to do this again?" That's how I got into leadership development, working with Paul and Ken many zillion years ago. And then after that, I began speaking and teaching. And I traveled all around the world. So I've been to 102 countries. On American Airlines alone, I have over 11 million frequent flyer miles. So I'm a mega flyer. Then I enjoy speaking and teaching. That's what I love to do the most. Where I learned everything is coaching. I'm very blessed. I've been a coach of the CEO Ford, Pfizer, Glaxo, World Bank, Mayo Clinic, ministers in Saudi Arabia, UAE, leaders from all around the world, entrepreneurs, people that run huge companies. And what I love about coaching is that's where I learn everything. Although in theory, I'm supposed to teach these people, I actually learn much, much more than I teach. And then if you look at my book, The Earned Life, if you look at the endorsement page, the first paragraph I'm very proud of. It doesn't talk about me. It talks about who they are and how great they are and how lucky I am to know these people. Then the final thing I do is write and edit books and articles. So I have written or edited 51 books now. Not quite up to Ken, but I am up to 51. And I have 7 bestsellers, 4 New York Times bestsellers. And 44 of my books were purchased only by my mother, my father, and associated relatives. So
wow.
I've written a lot of books. A few of them sold about 3 million copies. The rest of them nobody bought. And then after that, let's see, I went to a program called Design the Life You Love. In the program, the woman said, "Who are my heroes?" My heroes are very kind and generous people who are nice teachers. She said, "You should be more like these heroes." So I decided to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. And the only price is when they got old, they had to do the same thing. So I make a selfie video and put it on LinkedIn, very primitive little selfie video. And I'm thinking, well, maybe 100 people would apply and I'd adopt 15. And I'm a nice old man stumbling through life and they laugh at my jokes. And then they get old and do the same thing. But I was wrong. So far, over 18,000 people applied for adoption. I've adopted about 370 people, including Gary and Ken. And the program is called the 100 Coaches Program, which is a wonderful, wonderful idea of giving back to others and give to others with no expectation they pay you anything. They just help somebody else down the road. And then finally, I've been married 48 years. My wife Lyda is a psychologist. We lived in Rancho Santa Fe, California for the same house for 30 years. We just moved about a year ago. Now we live in Nashville. So I live here in Nashville, surrounded by musical people. And live in Nashville. My daughter here is Kelly. It's why we live here. She's a professor at Vanderbilt. She's a full professor now, head of the marketing department. And I have a couple of grandkids here. And my son Brian's in Austin. So we live here in Nashville. I have Mark Thompson, my good friend, and I. We share homes together. So we share a home together in New York City, and then I have a home in Dubai. So if any of the listeners have ever been to Dubai, I live in a very small place called the Burj Khalifa. So
which, very small place.
Small place, which is the tallest
building in the world.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I have a home there. So it's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's phenomenal. You said something. I had a whole series of questions that I was going to ask you, and we'll still get to them. But you said something that just like arrested my heart very quick, and I think it's important that I ask you this because I know it'll resonate with some of the listeners here today. 2 things. One, obviously incredibly accomplished. What a life well lived. What a life well earned, using your terminology in your book. There's a lot of people that spend their lives comparing themselves to the lives of others. So they listen to that and they start talking about, wow, that's an incredible life of accomplishment. And Marshall's here, I'm here. But you said something. You've written over 50 books, and a couple of them sold over 3 million copies. But there's 44 that only your parents and family bought, and that encouraged me because for me as an author, I've written 1. And I'm writing a second one, and I was really excited when I finished the first one. But we tend to be our own worst critics, we beat ourselves up. And so to hear you say, I've written over 50 books, 44 of them, no one really bought, right? But these other ones sold a few million copies. I'm curious, how many books did you write before one really took off?
Oh, the first one, a lot of people bought.
The first one, a lot of people bought.
See, the first one, I did an edited book called The Leader of the Future.
Okay.
And the people's name on the cover were Peter Drucker, Francis Hesselbein, Richard Beckard, and me. Now, nobody bought the book because of me. I can guarantee you that. Nobody bought that book because of me. I was nobody compared to those people. On the other hand, I did a book with them, and then another one, and another one, and another one. And after I did 7 or so, I became one of them. But I didn't start being one of them.
See, that's the beautiful thing that you and Ken Blanchard and Gary Ridge, a lot of other people have in common. One of our values that we constantly talk about here is collaboration over competition. And what I love, when you talk to Ken and his works, he'll say, I've written 62 books and only 2 of them are books that I wrote by myself. The other 60 I co-authored with someone else.
Right.
And one of the things that you do really, really well in this book, The Earned Life, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I almost every page in this book is dog-eared for those of you who are watching. And But while this book you would think was, just by judging from a cover, is maybe an autobiography by you, which it's not, and you share a lot of your life stories, you share a lot of life stories of other people. You share a lot of stories of people that you've coached, of people that you've learned stuff from, of people that you've learned stuff with, people like Gary and their stories that are in here. And I think there's a life lesson to be learned there. You know, we live in a world that's so self-absorbed, where people are trying to build their following, build their network, you know, achieve a certain level of success. And there's something that I've learned from Ken. There's something that I've learned from Gary. There's something that I've learned from you, is that we're not meant to go it alone. And when we end up collaborating, I mean, the Marshall, you know, the MG 100, when we end up partnering with other people and learning from each other and sharpening each other as iron sharpens iron, you know, we become the best versions of ourselves. And you truly have exemplified that through your work and through your life.
Oh, thank you so much. And as I say, one thing I'm very proud of in my book, The Earned Life, if you look at the endorsements, those first 6 pages, the very first paragraph doesn't talk about how great I am. The very first paragraph says, you know, been blessed to work with the greatest leaders in America. In theory, I'm supposed to teach them. In practice, I've learned far more from them than they have learned from me. So
I highlighted that exact sentence in this book. It was the first thing I highlighted in the book, very first thing. And you mean that authentically and genuinely. And so now that people know who you are and they know your work, I think what I really want to help them understand is why that's important to you. You know, you have lived a very purposeful life, a very purpose focused life, a very others focused life. You've given so much of yourself to others, and in the process, as you just said in the beginning of that book, you've learned far more from those that you've given to. And again, another life lesson to be learned there. But let's talk about why that's important to you, because I think it's one thing to identify, you know, what it is we do, what our gifts, our talents and abilities are. It's a whole nother thing to understand why that's important to us and why we continue to do it. So why is it important to you, and why do you continue to do it?
well, you know, as I've grown older in life, I'd say in many ways I've become simpler and my mission has become simpler. I just want to help the people I'm dealing with, directly or indirectly, have a little better life. So let's imagine, based on this podcast, 2 or 3 people have a little better life. It's a good podcast. I'm happy. We should be proud. That's enough. I'm not going to change the world. I just want to help. If I have one person have a little better life, I've done a good job for today. That's it. And you know,
So
people I coach, look at their names, you know who they are, amazing human beings. Everybody I coach, I say, look, I want your company to be successful and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I just want to try to help you have a little better life. Then I always ask one question. Is that okay? Is that okay? And you might be shocked to know that 100% of the people I've asked that question to, is that okay? You know what they've said? Sounds good to me.
so good. You know, how you shared something there, and this is a theme through your work. You have a gift of being able to be so present in the moment, in the now. You know, we live in such a fast-paced, busy society. We've become human doings rather than human beings. You truly exemplify being, not necessarily doing, in each moment. And you talk about that. You talk about focusing on the swing that's right in front of you. You talk about focusing on today and letting go of yesterday, and really every day almost being this new beginning, and saying how can we measure the impact of today, right? Let's not worry about the past. Let's not necessarily worry too much about the fact. Not that goal setting and all those things is important. I mean, you're one of the most widely sought after executive coach thought leaders in the world. So of course, goal setting is important. But let's focus on today. What's our impact today? How do we get more people to think like that? Because I think we're operating, you know, that we're swimming upstream in that venue. The entire world is coming at us, busy, 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 doing, achieve, 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 achieve. How do you rewire your mindset to say, let's talk about the impact today? If we impact just one or
Well,
two.
I'm going to answer that question in two ways. One, on the achieve, achieve, achieve part, I'm going to save that for later when we talk about the new book. In terms of the today part, I'm going to talk about one of the favorite things I teach. It'll help anyone listening have a better life. It takes 3 minutes a day to do and costs absolutely nothing. Now, everybody's listening. Yeah, right. 3 minutes a day, costs nothing, help me get better at anything. It sounds too good to be true. Half of the people that start doing this quit within 2 weeks. And they do not quit because it does not work. They quit because it does work. So I'm going to spend a few minutes and teach you something that is incredibly easy to understand and it is incredibly difficult to do. And if anyone tells me this is easy to do, you just proved something to me. You know what you just proved? You've never done it. Because I can tell you, this is not easy to do. I have someone call me on the phone almost every day for the past 25 years to make sure I do this stuff. People ask me, do I have a coach? Do I need help? My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker and coach in the whole world. I have someone call me on the phone to help me every day. Why? I am too cowardly to do this stuff by myself. I'm too undisciplined to do this stuff by myself. I need help. And it's okay. I need help. It's okay. We all need help. Met anybody recently that didn't need help? How many of the top 10 tennis players have a coach? 10. Why? They're smart enough to know they need help. Look, we all need help. Now, here's how this process works. Get out a spreadsheet and on one column, write down a list of things that represent what's most important in your life, friends, family, coworkers, etc. And every question, these questions has to be answered with a number. And the number is a yes, no, or a number. If it's yes, it's 1, no, it's a 0 or a number. And then at the end of the week that you get a report card, that spreadsheet gives you a little report card. And I'm going to warn your listeners, the report card at the end of the week is not quite as beautiful as a corporate values plaque you see stuck up on a wall. I've been doing this 25 years. And you know what you learn when you do this every day? You learn that life is incredibly easy to talk. And life is incredibly difficult to live. And when you do this every day, you don't look at those talk values, look at those live values. Not so pretty. Now, you gave me a beautiful introduction, which I appreciate. You left out one thing in my bio there that one of my incredible skills, I was surprised you left it out. I have the ability to screw something up every day. Kind of left that out of my introduction there, but I'm amazed. I'm amazed at my daily talent of screwing something up. You know, every day. Doesn't seem every now and again. I think I'm going to slide through a day and not screw something up. Not so much. No, pretty much every day I screw something up. And so the problem with this process here is you get to look at it every day. It's not that pretty. Well, I'm going to share a couple of my questions. If any of your listeners would like all my questions, an article about it, send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. I'll send you an email about it. But one of my questions is, how many times yesterday did you try to prove you were right when it wasn't worth it? I don't see too many zeros on my scorecard. Kind of hard for that old professor not to be right all the time. Or how many angry or destructive comments did you make about other people yesterday? See, we don't want anybody stabbing us in the back. Why are we stabbing them in the back? Or how many minutes did you walk or push-ups or sit? There's questions about life. It is hard to do. And I'm going to finish. I'm going to give people 6 questions. If you just ask yourself these 6, you're going to have a better life. And it's hard to do this every day. And they all begin with a phrase called, did I do my best too? Now, why is that so hard? You can't blame somebody else. The question doesn't even say, did you succeed? The question asks, did you even try? You see, it's pretty hard to blame somebody else when we don't even try. Question 1, did I do my best to set clear goals today? Not as a human being, today. Number 2, how did I do at making progress against the goals I set today? Number 3, Did I do my best to be happy today? Did I do my best to find meaning today? Did I do my best to build positive relationships today? And the final one, as you referenced, did I do my best to be fully engaged today, to be present, to be fully engaged today, not as a theory or an abstraction, today and me? How did I do today? Well, over COVID, my friend Mark Thompson and I spent 600 hours with 60 amazing leaders, and every week they had to stand up like Alcoholics Anonymous and share their report cards. You see those names? They all look like the second coming of God. You listen to them talk every week, you realize just humans like everybody else. Every day make mistakes. Every day we start over. So it's tough to translate our lofty goals and ambitions to this process. Davin, did you ever try this daily question thing yourself?
There was actually something and there's 3 other questions that you have on the second page that I earmarked here. And I said, I'm going to start doing this on a regular basis. And I've started doing it since I've read your work, and it has made a tremendous difference. In fact, about 3-4 months ago, I started getting obsessed with this concept of being versus doing. In every talk that I've given over the summertime, I've emphasized that, because I speak a lot about purpose, and purpose in essence is magnified when we focus on being. And your questions have helped me be more present every single day. They've helped me be more grateful every single day. They've helped me be more focused every single day. They've helped me identify impact every single day. They've really helped me measure purpose in a way. And I've been speaking and talking about purpose for 10 years. What you just outlined there for our listeners, and if you're listening to this recording, I encourage you to go back and listen to the last 5 minutes of what Marshall just shared with you, because it's absolutely incredibly insightful. Those questions, Marshall, have helped me process measuring purpose in a way that I never have before. And there's 3 questions that you ask it's literally on the other page. I have a visual of it in my head that I've also started to ask as well. And here they are right here. And so for those of you who are listening, you can tell that we didn't rehearse this because I had to go find the page. But it's on page 154, the questions that Marshall just talked about in the Earned Life. But on 155, he also says, did I do my best to express gratitude? Did I do my best to forgive the previous me? And did I do the best to add value to someone's life? And let me tell you, Marshall, if we all asked ourselves the first 6 questions that you just asked, and these next 3 questions every day, my goodness, this world would be a much better place.
I agree. And I can tell you, it is hard to do.
So hard.
Why is it hard to do? Yesterday I talked to my friend Jim Kim. He's one of the people who endorsed the book. Jim has a simultaneous MD and PhD with honors from Harvard in anthropology. He founded World Bank. He was a CEO of the World Bank. He was a founder of Partners in Health. He was president of Dartmouth College. He's probably helped save 20 million lives. Wonderful human being. Jim and I were talking yesterday. You know what he said? I said, I'm going to just start all my coaching people. I'm going to start hiring somebody to call them every day. He said, sign me up. He said, I need help every day. Look, Jim Kim, he doesn't have to be humble. I don't have a simultaneous MD and PhD with honors from Harvard in anthropology in 5 years, and I wasn't president of the World Bank. But you know what? He's a human. He's no different than we are. That's right. We're all the same. We're all just humans here. And none of us are better than other people. We're just humans trying to struggle around through life as best we can. And so I think it's very, one thing I do is I'm so blessed because I get to be around people who are so successful, at least from a societal point of view, successful, that I realize, every day you're starting over.
Yes, that's exactly right. And there's the other piece that I think that you bring to that, and why you're able to have that perspective, is there's a genuine humility about you. You shared the part of the introduction that I left out, that you screw up every single day. We all screw up every single day. Our friend Gary Ridge, one of my favorite things is how he introduces himself. And now he's the retired CEO of WD-40, just transitioned obviously in September of this year. But he would always introduce himself and say, I am Gary Ridge. Hello. And I'm the probably wrong, sometimes right, and consciously incompetent CEO of WD-40 company. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's I don't know. Right. And he like almost kind of, it's like a disclaimer, like I'm a human being. I don't get it right all the time. And I might not have all the answers. And another way to say that is I need help. And you
Right.
talk about that in that you spend a lot of time talking about asking for help. And if you really think about it, have you ever asked someone for help and really have they said no, or have you not wanted to help them?
Right.
It's amazing how simple it is, but how contrary to our human nature it is. So I know we've got about 6 minutes left, and there's some final thoughts that I want you to share with our group here. But if you could, there's a lot of stuff in this book. Again, if you haven't read it, I implore you to go pick up The Earned Life. What is it that you do, Marshall, on a daily basis to make sure, because again, we don't live in a world that this is natural. What is it that you do to keep yourself focused on the questions that you just challenge us to ask ourselves,
Right.
to focus on, it's okay to ask for help and knowing when to do that and to actually take the action to do that? How do you keep yourself on a daily basis grounded in these very simple but very difficult insights that you've implored us to do?
One of the things I talk about in the book is the importance of alignment of three things. And one is what you talk about all the time. First, we need to have a higher aspiration. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Why am I doing all this work? And then second, our ambitions. That's what are we achieving? And that needs to be connected to our higher aspiration. And then the final one is our day-to-day life, our day-to-day actions. So to the degree we align these actions and our ambitions and our aspirations, we win. Most people that I coach really get addicted to achievement. They're all high achievers, and we fall into the great Western myth. What is it? I will be happy when. When I get the money, status, BMW, condominium, I will be happy when. Everything is great when. We all have this dream of this place called when, and everything is going to be fine. Well, if you look at the people who endorse my book, how much do they have to achieve, right? How much do they have to achieve? And one of the guys, and by the way, one of the things I talk about in the book that's very counterintuitive, never become addicted to achievement.
Mhm.
Never assume your value as a human being is based on the results of what you achieve. It isn't. For two reasons, never do this. One, you don't have total control over what you achieve. And number two, let's say you achieve something. How long does that bring lasting happiness and peace? An hour, a day, a minute? What about next week, next week, next week? One of the guys that endorsed the book is Albert Bourla. Albert's the CEO of Pfizer. I said, Albert, how'd it go last year? Well, pretty good, and came up with this vaccine and COVID and stocks an all-time high and, employee engagements through the roof and CEO of the year. I had a pretty good year. So what's your problem in life? I said, a huge problem. Next year. If his value is achieved as a human is he has to achieve more than he did last year, he can pack it in. Michael Phelps, 25 gold medals. What do you think about doing? After he won the last medal, kill himself. No more to do. Look, never place your value as a person based on the achievement of goals. You try to achieve goals. You work hard, you do your best, but that's not who you are as a human. You need that higher connection to purpose that you talk about all the time. Why am I doing all this stuff? For one, and two, you need to enjoy the process of life. One chapter I love in the book talks about the Marshmallow Study. I love that part where it says, they take this research in Stanford, take these kids, to give a kid one marshmallow, say eat one, you get one, but you wait, you get two. Well, allegedly they did longitudinal research, and kids who eat one are all losers, and kids that ate two grow up, become PhDs from Stanford. But anyway, the message is delayed gratification is good. You heard that 1,000 times. Delayed gratification is good. Work out more, exercise more, go on a diet. It's all good. It's one thing they didn't do in the study. You didn't take the kid that had two marshmallows and say, kid, wait a bit. We'll give you three. Wait some more. 4, 5, 10, 1,000. Where do you end up? An old man sitting in a room surrounded by thousands of uneaten marshmallows waiting to die. Sometimes you got to eat the marshmallows.
That may have been my favorite part of your book. I mean, there's so much in there, but reading that visual of, because sometimes we can get guilty of taking the time to enjoy the moment, to enjoy being, to enjoy the day, because we get so caught up in doing or achieving and just wanting a little bit more and running the race because it's the society that we live in. And I will tell you why, I was reading that, and there, you mentioned someone in there talking about, I'm trying to remember who it was, but he liked collecting really nice Bordeaux's, really nice wines.
Jack
And
Welch. Oh, it's
yeah,
Jack Welch, former
Jack
CEO.
Walsh, that's right, Jack Walsh, right? And anytime that you had dinner with him at that point in time, it was a nice bottle of wine. Why? Because life's too short not to drink good wine. And I very much appreciated that. But it's so true. I mean, there's nothing wrong with goal setting. There's nothing wrong with achieving. But that was just such a powerful image to me. I imagined myself as this old man filled in a room with thousands of stale marshmallows waiting to die. And the visual of that was just so powerful. Talk about putting your purpose in the wrong place. So many people put their purpose in their achievements and everything that they've achieved, and not in who they are, how they show up in every day, the impact they have, even if it's just one or two lives. And I love your question of, is that okay? If it's just one or two, is that okay? As we wrap up here, we've got just a few minutes left. If you could, some final parting thoughts for our audience today from a life well earned.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to begin with. And let me give you my favorite, best coaching advice for everyone listening. I want everyone to take a deep breath. Imagine you're 95 years old and you're just getting ready to die. You're on that deathbed. Here comes your last breath. Right before you take that last breath, you're given a beautiful gift. The ability to go back in time and talk to the person that's listening to me right now. The ability to help that person be a better professional, a better leader, much more important, the ability to help that person have a better life. What advice would that wise 95-year-old you, who knows what mattered in life and what didn't and what was important and what wasn't, what advice would that wise old person have for the you that is listening to me right now? Don't have to say anything or do anything. Answer that question in your mind. What advice would that old person have for you? Whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of a performance appraisal, that's the only one that's going to matter. That old person says you did the right thing, you did. The person says you made a mistake, you did. Some friends of mine interviewed old people who were dying, got to ask the question, what advice would you have? And, question number one is exactly what you just talked about. Advice number one on the personal side, be happy now. Not next week, not next month. Don't get wrapped up chasing stuff that you forget to enjoy the day-to-day process of life. It goes very fast. Be happy now, not next week. Number two, friends and family. Never get so busy climbing the ladder of success you forget the people who love you. When you're 95 years old and you look around your deathbed, they're the only ones who are there. And then finally, if you have a dream, and back to what you said, if you have a dream, go for it. A deeper purpose, because if you don't go for it when you're 25 or 35 or 85, you won't when you're 85. So maybe it's a stupid small dream, but just go for it. And the business advice isn't too much different. Life is short. Have fun. Number two, life is short. Have fun. Do whatever you can do to help people. And the main reason to help people has zero to do with money or status or getting ahead. I don't think either Ken Blanchard or Gary Ridge need any more money or status. Why are they trying to help people? Well, because the 95-year-old you is going to be proud of you because you did. Disappointed if you don't. And fine advice also the same. Go for it. Back to your point of higher purpose. Do what you think is right. You may not win, at least you tried. Old people will almost never regret the risk we took and failed. We regret the risk we failed to take. And finally, thank you so much for inviting me. And my hope is, hopefully, some people listening today maybe have just a little better life.
So good. Marshall, I can't tell you what a gift this short but very insightful and impactful time together has been for me. Each day I wake up with gratitude that I get to have conversations with people who have gone through the challenge of life ahead and have kind of parted the way and saying, this is the way, walk in it. And thank you for giving so much of yourself to so many others. Not to be cliche, but to living a life well earned. For those of you who have not picked up The Earned Life, you can get it obviously wherever books are sold. This is truly a masterpiece Marshall's written over 50 books. This one by far is my favorite, and will have a lot for you to be able to figure out how you could fulfill your purpose, how you can make the most of every single day, and most importantly, how you can help others become who they were created to be through the simple things that you do on a daily basis. Marshall, I hope we have an opportunity to do this again sometime. And I hope that we have an opportunity to meet in person sometime. Next time I'm through Nashville, I will definitely reach out to you. But so very, very grateful for you, my friend. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Truly my pleasure. For those of you listening, again, we're here, Marshall Goldsmith, world-renowned author, thought leader, speaker, executive coach, and the author of The Earned Life. Implore you to follow him on social media, pick up his works, apply his insights and his work to your life to fulfill the purpose that you were created for. We'll see you next time on the What Good Looks Like podcast.